This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to the program. I'm Roby Brock. Hope you've had a good spring break, Passover, happy Easter. This past week, we received new employment numbers, new census data, and housing statistics that offer us a unique peek at the Arkansas economy. Joining me to discuss is Mervin Jebaraj. He's the director of the Center for Business and Economic Research at the University of Arkansas Walton College of Business. Welcome back, Mervin.
It's always good to be here, Roby.
Well, let's begin with the unemployment rate. Arkansas saw its number creep up to 3.8% last month, almost a half percentage point higher than that all-time low of 3.4% last year. Now, 3.8% is still low, but the trajectory may not be the direction we hope to see. Should we be worried?
Well, you did mention that 3.8% is not the all-time low, but pretty close to a very low rate. You know, it's lower than the national rate. It's lower than any unemployment rate we've had in Arkansas for a very, very long time. So, let's get the good news out of the way. The unemployment rate is still really low, but that's about where the good news ends. We've had a very strong labor market here in Arkansas, but that strength is starting to probably diminish a little. So the unemployment rate being low is great. What was negative about the report was the labor force declining as well. So the number of people that are working or actively looking for work has declined. In fact, that has continued to decline for at least a couple of reports. And that is an issue because, as we've talked about repeatedly, the labor force participation rate in Arkansas remains stuck at 58%, and labor force declines are doing nothing to help that statistic move and get more people into the labor force. On the other hand, we also saw the payroll employment data come out, and we added about 2,000 jobs, it looks like, from February of last year to February of this year, which is, again, a little bit of a slower pace than what we saw in January. The highlights were that manufacturing employment, particularly in food processing, was up. The lowlights, if you will, in this was that we lost nearly 1,600 jobs in that time period in retail. So these are your store closures and the associated employment with that, and we haven't even factored in some of the big closures coming down the pipeline at Sears and Toys R Us and stuff. So there's a lot more jobs left to be lost in that particular sector. So all in all, this month's employment and unemployment report wasn't the best for Arkansas, but we can still hang our hats on the low unemployment rate.
New census numbers show that Arkansas is seeing some strong growth in two areas, although at different levels. Northwest Arkansas, among the fastest growing in the United States. Jonesboro had a respectable population growth percentage, faster than Central Arkansas or Fort Smith, the other big metro areas. What's at work from your perspective?
So these are pretty good, strong growth rates in Northwest Arkansas and Jonesboro. Northwest Arkansas, as you mentioned, 2.3% growth, 14th fastest in the country after being 20th the last time we looked at this statistic. And so that's about 12,000 people moving into Northwest Arkansas in a year. And so if you want to look at it in different ways, that's 1,000 people a month or 34 people a day moving into Northwest Arkansas. And that growth rate is actually kind of spectacular. It's maintained the 2.3% rate for 2 years now and has hovered above 2% for longer than that. So that growth rate is really great in Northwest Arkansas. About 1.1% growth rate in Jonesboro. Again, we're working with a smaller base, but nice solid growth rate in Jonesboro as well. Now, if you think about this, put these numbers in perspective, the state as a whole, the population grew about 0.5%, which is about 15,600 people. 12,000 people of that net number came from Northwest Arkansas. That's nearly 75% of the population growth is accounted for in just one metro area. And so if you look at this from a statewide perspective, you look at 40 out of the 75 counties lost population during the same time period. So most of the growth is happening in Northwest Arkansas and Jonesboro, a little bit in Central Arkansas, which was the third fastest growing region in the state. So a lot of that growth is just concentrated in the northwest and the northeast corner of the state.
Let's talk about housing. You shared some interesting comments in a story we reported this week about how the residential market in Northwest Arkansas is struggling with affordable homes. What do those numbers tell you?
So when we think about all this population growth, we're looking at Northwest Arkansas about 2.3% and in Jonesboro about 1.1%. All of those people moving into a region rather quickly as the population grows. You're going to have more need for housing. So in Northwest Arkansas, about 70% of the growth was net in migration. That's not, people being born here. That's people moving from other counties into Northwest Arkansas, people moving from other states into Northwest Arkansas. And in Jonesboro, that number was about 60%. So 60% of the population came from other parts of the state or other regions. So that increases the need for housing. And at least what we've seen here in Northwest Arkansas is that it has put pressure on how many homes are available for sale. The numbers haven't increased to keep up with population. The number of lots available to build homes on, these are lots in active subdivisions, empty lots that you could put a home on, those are continuing to decline. So the consequence of all of this is that home prices have climbed here in Northwest Arkansas, at least, that we have really good detailed statistics for. In particular, in both Benton and Washington County, in 5 years, the home price has climbed $50,000 in each of those counties. So the average price is about $230,000 in Benton County. It's about $220,000 in Washington County. It's only a $10,000 difference between those two counties. And, home prices have climbed about 25% or so during that 5-year period. The rental lease rates have also increased about 20%. So there's a lot of demand for housing. You're seeing a very strong rental market as well as a very strong home sales market. The key here for all of the regions that are growing in Northwest Arkansas is obviously growth is great. Both Northwest Arkansas and Jonesboro are growing in part because they have a strong base of employers in Northwest Arkansas. That's your 3 big Fortune 500 companies and the university. In Jonesboro, you have employment structured around food processing at the Arkansas State University there and healthcare. And both of these regions, obviously Northwest Arkansas has spent a lot more money on building their amenity mix around trails and restaurants and bars and breweries and museums. Jonesboro is trying to do the same stuff, and so build the amenity mix for people moving in. But one thing that both Jonesboro and Northwest Arkansas advertise is their low cost of living, which is in large part driven by the price of homes. So when you consider that most of the people moving to Northwest Arkansas, most of the people moving to Jonesboro are coming from other counties within the state, other regions that are around us, at least here in Northwest Arkansas, when your home price is about $230,000, that's very competitive or pretty high price compared to our surrounding regions. So when we think about housing affordability, we want to continue to attract people to move into this region. Both regions need to develop a housing plan that deals with how much the supply of housing should be to meet the needs of the growing population, and to make sure that that housing caters to all different income levels. Even in Northwest Arkansas, where the median income is the highest, it's only about $51,000, and a home price of $230,000 is well more than about four times your median household income. So both regions need to work on a housing plan now, one that structures where and how much housing is needed and at what price points those housing is needed, so that we don't have the same housing affordability problems that coastal cities have right now. We don't want to get to that level, because once we do, it's really hard to solve. Right now there's space and time here in Northwest Arkansas and other growing regions of the state to deal with housing before we have an affordability crisis.
So what you're saying is that you and I should get into the first-time home building business.
Nationally as well as here in Arkansas, we're seeing most homes are being built in the price range, upwards of $200,000. There's pretty much no homes being built below $200,000. So the issue, obviously, is construction prices are a lot more expensive, and land around all of these nice amenities in all these regions is expensive. So unless cities are willing to rezone, there's not a whole lot we can do with construction prices regionally. Unless cities are willing to rezone some of their commercial thoroughfares, look at some of these places where the big box stores and strip malls around them are struggling, rezone those to be mixed-use developments so as to increase the amount of land available for residential development. It's going to be hard to find lots that you can put sub $200,000 homes on. So we'd want to get into that business, but we'd have to wait a bit.
All right, that'll be our backup plan if this economist and TV thing doesn't work out. How about that?
Sounds good.
He is Mervin Jebaraj, Director of the Center for Business and Economic Research at the University of Arkansas Walton College of Business. Thank you so much, Mervin.
Thank you.